Hi all, welcome back to my channel. In this video, I want to share a very tragic story with you out of Washington State. Police in Sudden Valley say they were called to a home for a murder investigation. They claim that a tenant living in the home found 55-year-old mother Michele Boudreau Deegan and her 7-year-old twin girls dead from an apparent murder-suicide. Police say they found the gun used in the murders and suicide on the floor close to Michelle's body and found the girls shot in their beds. Autopsy results on the twins showed that they had been heavily drugged with sedatives, rendering them incoherent before their murders. Police say that during a search of the home, they found evidence that Deegan had been planning the twins' murders for a while. They also say she was involved in a heated custody battle with the girls' father, which they believe could have contributed to her decision to kill them and herself. Police say they found writings that Deegan was suicidal and that she wasn't going to let her girls live without her. Now, part of the reason why I wanted to cover this story was because, according to news reports, Deegan was a psychologist. Yes, I know, psychologists are humans too, but they are educated and trained to help others to deal with their problems. They have the knowledge and resources to help others who are going through the very same things she was going through. So, if anybody knew the path that she chose to take was not necessary, it was her. But this situation seems to be a tad bit darker than it appears on the surface. Now, I'm going to talk about some aspects of the story that you may disagree with, but that's okay. I'm always willing to agree to disagree. We come from different backgrounds and experiences, so we have different opinions about things. If you're a psychologist yourself, you may way disagree with the things I'm about to say, and that's fine too. As much as I have respect for your profession, learning about things by reading books is not the same as living it. I'm a believer that street smarts trump book smarts any day of the week and twice on Sunday, so you'll just have to deal with me on this one. Those of us who have gone through divorces with children know what it is to have to work out custody, visitation, etc. It can be a pain. Some people go through heated custody battles that make things even harder. But never, ever, ever do we think that killing our children is the solution to our problem. If anything, as good parents, we're fighting for what's in their best interest. It's only when we place our wants and needs or our hatred and desire to hurt our exes first that we can shift our thinking from fighting for our children to using them as pawns in our own game. I didn't know Deegan, nor do I know the kind of mother she was, so you can say that I have no right to judge her or what she did. I disagree. I didn't need to know her to know that she didn't have the right to take her daughters' lives for any reason. I don't care what kinds of conditions those girls lived in. They were better than the fate that she gave them. Police say they found proof that she had suicidal intentions days prior to the deaths, and that she left evidence of planning the murders of her children well beforehand also. So, she knew she was spiraling down, but she didn't seek any outside help to stop it. Could she have suffered from some type of mental illness? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean she wouldn't recognize that she was having murderous or suicidal thoughts, especially with her education and training, to the extent that she knew she needed help. Mental health professionals seek professional therapy all the time. Hell, they probably need it more than most because they're listening to everyone else's problems. According to her Facebook page, she provided mental health counseling for adolescents, individuals, and couples. I don't believe she was able to provide mental health counseling for others, but not recognize any signs or red flags about her own mental health issues. Not buying it. Don't even try it. I don't believe she was in a state of cognitive dissonance either. One news reporter spoke with a neighbor of Deegan's who said they rarely ever saw her girls outside. She claimed to know the family and said that people in the neighborhood expressed concern for the twins because they believed Deegan to be very troubled. She said she even contacted Children's Protective Services at some point prior to the murders, but did not say why she did. So, if the neighbors thought Deegan was troubled to the point where they were concerned about the girls, maybe that was why their father was fighting for custody of them. Maybe he saw it too. Which tells me it was going on for a little while. I don't believe she didn't see it herself. I think she didn't want help for it. Maybe she didn't want to admit that she was in trouble mentally and emotionally, or she didn't care because she was unhappy with her life circumstances. Now, when this first happened, I looked at her Facebook page, and many people who seemed to know her were leaving comments about how they knew she didn't do it. They didn't believe she could do that to her children, and that they were upset that people would accuse her of such horrific acts. But now that the police investigation is finished, they concluded that Deegan, and only Deegan, was responsible for the deaths of her daughters. So, even though some people say that she appeared to be troubled, she was able to fool others into believing she was just fine. Just a wonderful, loving mother. She must have fooled her clients as well, because I doubt if they noticed she was troubled that it would have gone unreported. Now, on her Facebook page, on the day she committed the murders, she posted an article titled, "Narcissistic Parents Are Literally Incapable of Loving Their Children." She also posted a video called "Narcissistic Parenting, a Setup for Suicide." Many people who saw these posts on her Facebook page assumed she was talking about her ex, the father of her daughters. Some people suggested she was saying that she was saving her girls from their narcissistic father. I disagree. I believe she was confessing her own truth, that she was the narcissist, and she herself was incapable of loving her own children. Because as a mother, if there was any way in hell at all that I would be able to kill my children, it would be because I didn't love them. If I had no real bond or connection with them. From there, it's not a far jump to see them as the perfect way to hurt or pay back your ex because you didn't get the outcome you wanted from the relationship. We all know there's no possible way to hurt your ex more than to hurt him or her through their children. It's sick, but it happens every day. So, even if she was suicidal, she probably didn't think her death would deeply wound her ex, but the deaths of his children would. So, since she was already planning on ending her life, why not deal him one final blow before she exited? Especially if she knew he really wanted custody of his girls because he loved them. Maybe she was even jealous of his love for them, so she took them away from him. Don't believe me? She also wrote about anger and violence on her Facebook page. In one section, she wrote, quote, "Violence is not an expression of anger, but a strategy to maintain power in a relationship." In another section, she wrote that violence is a tactic used in a relationship. She explained that non-physical violence examples were things like threatening divorce, taking the children, threatening suicide, and threatening violence. Violence is not an expression of anger, but a strategy to maintain power in a relationship. So, she didn't take a non-physical violence route by threatening suicide or violence because she didn't think that would hurt her ex. She instead chose to take the power away from him and take away his beautiful little girls who he no doubt deeply loved. I have a unique perspective on this story because, unfortunately, I have extensive experience dealing with narcissists, so I know how they think. It sounds harsh to say that she felt nothing for her girls, and that was why she was able to end their lives to hurt their father, but just because you have children doesn't mean you're capable of loving them. If you don't know that by all the horrible stories of parents abusing, torturing, and killing their children, then I don't know how to convince you that it's true. Be grateful if you can't understand this concept, because that means you were loved as a child, and maybe you've never dealt with a narcissist. But narcissists are incapable of love and of forming bonds of love with others. All their love is directed to themselves. They are numero uno, and they see everyone else as sources or supply where they can obtain what they need. They don't care about your needs. They care how you can fill their needs. My father was a narcissist. He had 5 children that he formed no bonds with. We were the same as strangers to him. He didn't get to know his children. He didn't care to know his children. And all that ever mattered to him was how they affected his life. How much money did they cost? How much trouble were they going to be? And how much was he going to be put out by them? That was it. The only time he even spoke to us was when he was either yelling at us or telling us what a problem we were in his life. It was all him, him, him. He never drove us anywhere. He never went out of his way to do anything for us. And if he did something like bring home burgers or ice cream or something, he expected to be praised for his tiny efforts. He did for the neighbors and his friends because he wanted everyone to think he was so great, but he never did for his own children. He didn't care. There was no love there. He could take us or leave us. If something would have happened to one of us, he wouldn't have been sad or devastated. He would have been angry because he would have had to come out of pocket to pay for a funeral. Then he would have had to take time out of his day to attend it, just so people would think he actually cared. When I was accepted to college, he told me not to expect him to give me a dime to pay for it. I chose to go, so it was on me. I was 17 years old. I had already paid for my own braces because he wouldn't help me pay for them, and I'd already purchased my first car because he would never drive me anywhere. So, I needed to apply for financial aid, and I had to give him forms to fill out. I was 17. He lived with me my whole life. He said I was his child, and yet he needed to ask me my middle name, my birth date, and how old I was for the paperwork. He didn't know shit about me, and he didn't care to know. I went away to school in the fall, and 3 months later, when I returned for Christmas, he asked me which university I went to. He didn't even know. He'd talk on the phone for hours with his friends, but didn't even know where his own daughter went to college. My brother went away for the weekend with his friends to his friend's grandmother's cabin, an hour and a half north of where we lived. His friend's grandmother took them out to dinner one evening, and on the way back to the cabin, they were involved in a really bad car crash. They were hit by a drunk driver. His friend's grandmother was killed in the accident, and he and his friends were hospitalized with non-fatal injuries. When my parents received the call from the hospital that my brother was there, they asked if anyone would go to pick him up. My brother was his only son, just so you'll know. He didn't even ask if my brother was hurt. He just told the hospital that he didn't live in the area, so he would have to send somebody to go get him. Then he called someone he knew who lived close to the hospital where my brother was and asked him to go get my brother and bring him home, because he couldn't be bothered. We grew up in an abusive home, and neither of our parents formed any loving bonds with their children, so it would have never helped our mother to hurt our father by hurting his children, because he didn't care. But that lack of care, lack of love, and lack of any parental bonding would have made it very easy to do to us exactly what Deegan chose to do to her daughters. It's a very sad, sad situation when people have children that they can't love. I've never understood why they do. Unless she had the girls because he wanted them, not her, which is altogether possible and would make their murders make all the more sense. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you on my next video.